Welcome to the Social for Brokers podcast. Today I have Jon Stones with me. So Jon is the managing director of Mortgage First, who are based in Derbyshire, and he's been running the company for the last 14 years. So Jon now employs over 40 staff. I think he was saying there's like 43 of them now before we started on the podcast. To give you an idea of the business levels that they do, Mortgage First, they did 607 mortgage applications in quarter one with £68 million worth of lending, which is just phenomenal. So if you want to know how to build a beast of a business like this, then stay tuned for the next 30 minutes. If you're not driving, get a bit of pen and paper and take a few notes. We're going to have a chat about everything from how we launched the business, where he is now, where he wants to take it, and also importantly, how social has helped with not only leads, but with recruitment of staff as well, and the next steps that these guys are going to take from here. So Jon, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Welcome.
No problem, Chris. Thanks for having me on. Bit of a big intro there, so I'm feeling under pressure already, to be honest.
I like to say to people, it's just a bit of a chat, and then you get rolling. I think it's nice when I get people like yourself that have built this business and you're so passionate about it that you could sit there and talk for hours, couldn't you, about it? So I'm sure we'll have loads to go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially subject. Once I get going, you struggle to stop me sometimes.
Yeah. And I'll have to excuse, if anybody's watching this on YouTube, you'll probably see my face is bright red. I was at a farm yesterday and I sat facing the sun for about 4 hours holding a dog lead. And I think you can see my sunglasses lying on my nose. So somebody turn down the brightness on their screen if you're watching. Right. So let's get a bit of an intro into who you are, Jon, what you've done, where you've been and where you are right now.
Yeah, so like you say, Mortgage First set the firm up in 2008. Prior to that, I'd had a number of jobs, shelf stacker in Morrison's, I worked in a call centre, worked as a travel agent, just kind of fell into financial advice, really. Okay. A friend of mine was, probably like most people, I didn't dream of being a mortgage advisor, to be honest. Friend of mine worked at CIS, Co-op Insurance, as a financial advisor. He got me an interview there, winged that a little bit. Somehow managed to get myself a job, got my financial planning certificates, got my MAQ as it was back in the day, not the CMAP, it was too old for that. It was even before the CMAP, yeah. Mortgage advice qualification it was, yeah. So did that. Stayed at CIS a couple of years, then went off to be to work as an employee broker for a firm that offered me a role. And then kind of credit crunch was on the horizon. The firm that I was working for, they were moved more towards the sort of adverse credit market, which you could see the issues coming on the horizon. So 2008, just as a credit crunch was happening, decided to set my own company up, which was a rather foolish move possibly at the time, but managed to survive that. Next 4 or 5 years was really pretty much just a one-man band ticking along, me as a mortgage advisor. And the business really started to grow around 2013, 2014, which was then when we sort of looked at taking on, or I looked at taking on another advisor, first administrator first of all, and then moved on to another advisor, and we've sort of steadily grown from there. So, the business has been going 14 years now, but in terms of sort of growth and that kind of thing, it's really only been the last sort of 7-8 years or so that the growth has really actually been going. We're now at a point where, like I say, based in Chesterfield, Derbyshire, we've got 43 staff in total. I think it is 27 brokers, predominantly based remotely all over the country.
Okay.
And then the admin team, management team, as well as some of the advisors working from head office in Chesterfield. So yeah, that's pretty much us.
So when you set up in 2008, did you ever think, look, I'm going to have nearly 50 staff working for a company?
No, absolutely not. It was never my intention to build a big, mortgage brokerage. It just, not by accident, but it just kind of happened along the way, really. It was never the plan to have lots of staff and that kind of thing. It was just kind of how the business evolved. I've got no business experience, I've got no management experience. I was just a pretty run-of-the-mill mortgage advisor, to be perfectly honest. And there was sort of certain things that happened along the way, which enabled us to significantly grow the business. And now we're in a position where we're sort of looking at the next steps to really take it to the next level as well.
See, I love that because I speak to a lot of mortgage brokers who are in that stage where they've maybe hired the first admin or they're looking to get the second mortgage broker on board. And it's almost like I don't think people realise how much opportunity there is out there to grow to this business, because you probably never had a business plan. You know what I mean? You didn't like have to have a business plan to apply for all these grants and that kind of thing. You were just like, right, I'm doing well. I'm getting good referrals come back to me. I've got too many to handle, so I need another broker, and then I need another one, and then I need an extra admin staff to help with that. And it's like that domino effect, isn't it? Was there a time when it exploded? Did you get like to 5 staff and it jumped to 20, or 10 and it jumped to 30?
I can't really remember. It's all a bit
in
a blur the last few years, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I think that the last couple of years we've gone from kind of 12, 15 to 20, 26, 27. We've got
a big jump.
Yeah, we've got another couple going through authorization process at the moment. I've had 15 CVs in my inbox just over the weekend. I've got to sit and go through today to have a look at things. So, I mean, I guess the escalation of it was kind of probably from the one advisor and one admin to kind of 5 or 6 advisors. There was quite, and that's probably the biggest jump in terms of business growth. That's the point when I then had to bring extra people in to kind of help me manage the business day to day, commissions and that kind of thing. Because all of a sudden you're going from being an advisor with an administrator to, managing people, even though, the advisors then and some of the advisors now are still self-employed. You're still to a certain degree managing them. They're still representing you and your business and your brand, still your name on the, above the door at the end of the day. So whatever they do reflects on you. So you're having to do that. You're also having to manage commissions and all that kind of thing. So that jump kind of 2014, 2015, where we probably went from 1 to 5 or 6 in the space of about 12 months was probably the most dramatic jump that the business took.
Was it scary? Because I know a lot of people do find that step quite to say, right, it's just me, I can look after my business, to then say, I've got to feed 5 brokers with leads.
No, it wasn't, because we were growing for the right reasons. We were growing because we were too busy.
Okay.
Some people, I've spoke to a few people over the years, and they're maybe looking to grow for not the wrong reasons, but they're looking to grow because they want to grow a big business rather than having, people I want to take an advisor on and I want to, we grew because I was too busy myself and I took an administrator on because I was doing all my own admin. So the next step is you take an administrator on. Then when you get to the point when you're still too busy, even with an administrator, that's when you take your first advisor on. So it wasn't scary because we knew that we had the leads to feed them.
Yeah,
growing because of that. It's scarier now, particularly over the last couple of years when you've got 15, 20 employees on the payroll, and you kind of think, well, if things go belly up now, it's not just me and my family that's at risk. There's 42 other families that are at risk as well in terms of, so yeah, particularly when I see the payroll each month, that's a bit scary.
I can imagine.
It makes my eyes water a little bit.
So where are you going next? Then I want to talk about where you're going next, and then I'd like to get a bit of an input into how you step back from the business because you don't advise. But where is Mortgage First going next?
So we've done a number of things over the last sort of 6 to 8 months in terms of rebuilding the foundations again. So we've kind of had a good period of growth where we've gone from, like I say, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to etc. But actually the plans are that hopefully in the next sort of 12 months, we're looking to double in size in terms of advisor numbers. Wow. But in order to do that and to make sure that everything is in place that we need, we've had to sort of restructure the senior management of the company. Oh, okay. So, if you rewind 3 years ago, sort of everything was kind of going through me and Lisa, whereas now we have 3 senior managers in place. We've got Carly, who's head of service. She essentially looks after the service that our introducers and our clients get. You have Jon, who is head of advisor development. So Jon's role is to be the support, particularly for the self-employed brokers, particularly new brokers that come into the firm that are working remotely. And he is there to guide them, hold their hand to whatever level they need it to get them to where we want them to be and where they want to be. And then we've also just brought Paul in as well, whose role is head of growth. Paul is sort of looking to grow the introducers, to grow the advisor numbers, and to grow the Mortgage First brand as well. And then underneath that, we've made various sort of promotions within the administration team to help facilitate the sort of next level of growth. So yeah, we've got big plans for the next sort of, I put a plan in place with our network, Stonebridge. We were talking to them about sort of what the next 5 years looks like, and we sort of did short, medium, long-term goals. Ultimately, the long-term goal is to be one of the biggest and best in the country, on business volumes, on advisor headcount as well. So yeah, should be exciting in a few years.
Interesting. And what are the numbers that you're doing at the minute? So you were talking about February was one of your biggest month, and then March popped it again, didn't it?
Yeah, February was our biggest ever month of new business submitted, as in commission value, and then March was 20% higher than that. I mean, last year we did just over $250 million in terms of completed lending, so 253 million we completed on last year. So the aim, long-term aim, is that I want to get $1 billion to $1 billion of lending per year, which would be nice. Aim this year is obviously to keep bettering it. So we're hoping for 300 to 350, but it's quite fluid because it depends on how many advisors we actually bring in. We're looking at hopefully bringing a significant number in, but if they come in the next month, then they're going to have quite a big impact on the rest of this year. If they're not in and on board for the next in 3 to 4 months, well, then it takes 2 to 3 months to start banking, and it's not really going to have a big impact till next year. So the targets are always quite fluid whenever somebody sort of asks me to put on, what's your aim for this year? Because really it depends on how much we grow. But yeah, £1 billion a year in lending would be quite nice to hit. Awesome.
That's going to be the title of the podcast, How to Get a Business to $1 billion. I suppose one of the big questions is, where do you find staff? Because that is I think, looking from the outside in, is one of the biggest struggles is finding good staff, finding good managers, good administration staff, good brokers. Where do you find them?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I've got a number of friends who run their own brokerages, and it's a common question, to be honest. It is hard finding the right people. Some of our best recruitment has actually just been done by referrals from our existing advisors. So we offer them a referral incentive, because the way we look at it is, well, if we're going to pay a recruiter to find us an advisor, why wouldn't we incentivize our staff to bring good advisors through the door as well? So one of the ways is through the bigger you grow, the more output those advisors have in terms of people that they know as well. So that's the big way that we do it, is by, and you would like to think that even if you're offering a cash incentive for them to refer people, they're not going to refer people who aren't very good, because it doesn't look very good on them as an individual as well. So you would like to think they're only going to refer people of a high caliber. Obviously the obvious one of recruiters as well. And to be honest, a big way that we do it is through social media, is through growing the brand on LinkedIn and things like that. Because ultimately, LinkedIn is it's a business site. That's where if you're going to get in front of lots and lots of potential new recruits, LinkedIn is the place to do it.
Yeah, and we'll get onto social media, because we had an interesting chat before the podcast about how social's not only used for lead generation, but it's also can be cleverly used for staff recruitment as well. Before we get onto the social media section, I have a few business owners that come on that have got to your size, and it's impossible for you to be a mortgage broker and to run a business. So at what stage did you step back from being a mortgage advisor, and what advice could you give people that are maybe teetering on the edge at this moment in time?
So I probably did it. Again, it's all a bit of a blur, particularly with lockdown and that kind of thing. It was about 2019 when I probably 2019-ish when I stepped back, and ultimately the reason that we did it is I couldn't keep doing both roles. I couldn't keep wearing both hats. I was an advisor, and without blowing my own trumpet, like most people who build a successful mortgage brokers, I was a pretty good mortgage broker at the time as well. So, I was writing a hell of a lot of business myself, whilst also trying to sort of grow and run a business. And then myself and Lisa, my wife, who's also one of the directors of the firm, 2 young kids. We've got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. So rewind to this point, kids are sort of 3 and 7. I couldn't keep doing both things. I was working 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. Monday to Friday. I was working every Saturday, trying to keep on top of everything of being a mortgage advisor and trying to grow and run a business as well. And you kind of reach the point where you've got to make a decision on what you want to be. Do you want to be a mortgage advisor or do you want to be a business owner? There's no wrong or right answer. It's whatever's right for you as an individual.
Did you toy with the idea? Sorry to interrupt. Did you toy with the idea of getting somebody in to be like an MD of the company and you to be a mortgage broker?
No, because to be perfectly honest, I'd reached the end of the line with being a mortgage broker.
Had you? Right, okay.
It had been that intense for such a number of years. Stonebridge, the network that we're part of, they have what they call the 100 clubs. So they probably had about 700-800 brokers in my day. And I was in the top 10 advisors in the network whilst with the business. But I wouldn't say I'd lost my love for it, but I just, I look back now and people say, "Oh, do you miss being an advisor?" I says, God, no. not at all. And that's to do with me personally. Like I say, I've got some good friends and they do miss it, and they're almost tempted to get back on the tools every now and again. Whereas I, being completely honest, couldn't think of anything worse to go back to. Now I've taken that step away, but at the time, I absolutely loved it. So no, I didn't consider that because I just saw that as a natural sort of evolution of my role. It's my business. So if anybody is going to run the business day to day, surely it should be me.
It must have been quite hard for you to make that mindset shift where every morning you'd come in and go, right, if I do 4 appointments today and I get 4 sign-ups, I see that as success. Whereas the first day where you said, I'm not doing any appointments, to walk into the office, you've then got to reframe what success actually looks like. And it's success as a business owner rather than a mortgage broker. So how do you structure your day? What do you, I know we're going into a lot more depth to this than I thought we would, but
no, it's fine. I mean, it's a difficult one. I remember speaking to a guy who ran a similar sized business at the time, and he de-authorized and stepped back a year or two earlier, and he sort of said a similar thing, that it's a very weird scenario. Mm-hmm. You kind of go into it thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to fill the day doing, and then before you know it, you're busier than ever, and you wonder how you ever managed to fit the advice into it. I mean, I guess the hardest part of it all is the financial element to it.
Okay.
In the sense of, it took us a good few years from a financial point of view for the business to sort of sort itself out. From you de-authorizing, and don't get me wrong, we're still making decent money. But if you're an advisor, mm-hmm. and writing X amount of hundreds of thousands a year in terms of commission, the company keeps 100% of that when it comes in, because there's nobody to pay it away to. Yeah. Obviously, I'm a director. I'm not paid a commission on the business that goes through. It just goes into the business. So, if you think as an advisor you're banking X, that's the business's money. So straight away, to replace that level of lending, level of income, shall I say, you probably need 2 or 3 brokers, because you've got to pay them a commission. Mm-hmm. And some of them, putting it simply, aren't going to be as good as you, or aren't going to care as much as you, because it's not their business. So to bring in that same level of profit for the company, you've almost got to bring in 2 to 4 advisors, depending on the level of business that you're doing, just to stand still and make the same amount of money. So that is always, when I speak to people about who are on the edge of, shall I do it, shouldn't I do it, that is the biggest eye opener in terms of actually the financial implications of doing it straight away, from depending on whatever split you're going to pay somebody to look after your clients and do your business. Mm-hmm. They need to do nearly twice as much as you were doing for you as a company to make the same amount of money. and that takes a bit of getting used to when you
Yeah,
go.
you don't think about it's the financial element, because you're taking, as soon as you step back from being a broker, you're taking a very successful broker out of the money generating part of the business. That's gone. So like
you're essentially almost losing your number one broker, and you're having to replace them with like say 2, 3, 4 other brokers, because even if you replace it like for like, you're still making 50, 60% less because you're having to pay this broker to do the same level of business.
Yeah.
So it's I
never thought about it like that. And were you prepared for that? Did you think? No, you didn't. No. I love this honesty. I like it.
We reached the point where I had to step back because I couldn't keep doing everything.
Yeah.
And we'd already grown the business to a certain level, so we wanted to carry on growing it. And yeah, we took the decision, right, we've got to do it now. I've got to step back and start growing the business. That financial side of it, if I'm being perfectly honest, hadn't really registered, probably in the same way, and it's not something you ever thought of, but in the same way that it hadn't with you. And you don't really think about it until you're looking at the sort of ins and outs, thinking, well, we banked what we always did. Why is there not as much left at the end of the month? And it's like, right, yeah, that'll be because I was banking 100% of it, whereas we've now to pay those 2 advisors to look after my clients. So but it does take some time. So yeah, I mean, my biggest tip to people looking at doing it is make sure you're prepared for that side of things financially, and you've got a decent amount of money in the bank, because you're right, the same levels of business as you've always done, your profit's going to drop because you're not retaining as much of it.
And last question on this, I promise. How did you feel handing over clients that were your regulars? That must be
it's just sort of, you just become used to it now. At the start, it was quite difficult. I'm a bit of a control freak by nature anyway, so having to hand them over, it wasn't so bad handing them over. It was more the kind of learning to trust that they're going to get dealt with. At first, I was probably a little bit too. I was handing them over, but then I was just almost chasing it up as if it was my client. So I'd be on the phone, have you spoke to that client? Have you spoke to that client? Have you spoke to that client? And once you then just sort of accept and trust that they're going to get dealt with, it's quite liberating and quite, I was out with some friends at the weekend, and one of them said to me, what's a good mortgage rate at the moment? I was like, I don't know.
You've got experts that do that for you now.
I have absolutely no idea, but I get someone to give you a ring who can tell you what a good mortgage rate is. So I guess once you kind of, yes, you've got to keep your eye in, and you need to know what's happening with lenders and rates and that kind of thing. It's a bit of an over exaggeration, but once you kind of accept that and hand that over, it's quite liberating to kind of be able to have that bit of freedom. But yeah, probably at least the first year, I was probably a bit of a control freak with the clients. And even now, clients still come back to me. They'll be, I'll put in touch with an advisor and be like, "Oh, John, I just wanted to check. Would you take this? Would you take this rate?" And he's like, "Look, I wouldn't have put you in touch with that broker if I didn't trust their advice. But yes, I would do this if that's what you're asking." So still get clients coming back now, but no, it's it like I said, it becomes quite liberating after a while.
But as you said, you've got a team of brokers that will look after them. Anyway, sorry, we have spoke a lot in depth in that, and I really hope that helps some people if they're at that stage at the moment and teaching on the edge and maybe doing it, or you've got a plan for 5 years' time. John's been through it, so just take those tips on board. They're really useful. So we are now onto the social media section. Now, you are big on social media, and it's not so much just posting all the time, you're huge on personal content in terms of the team, aren't you? So you do a lot of meet the team posts, don't you? How do those go down with your audience?
Yeah, really well. So, I mean, we try to focus on the kind of personal aspects of it all. My take on, and LinkedIn is the only one really that I personally use a lot. I'm on Instagram, I'm actually on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, but in terms of me actively posting and using rather than just snooping and looking at stuff, LinkedIn is the only one that I use, and obviously this is a big thing, and you see it all the time. People put, sorry for the personal post. It shouldn't matter. It's the whole LinkedIn for business is completely old news nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
People react much better to the personal side, not just on LinkedIn, on Facebook as well. Lisa runs we've got 12,000 followers or something on Facebook, and she runs that. And the posts that get so much more engagement are the personal ones, whether it's about the staff or, puts a picture of our kids on bringing Easter eggs to the office. That gets so much more interaction than something about interest rates or product changes. People don't care about that. People, they can find that information if they want it. What people want to see is the kind of, the real people behind the company, which is why we put the meet the team thing on, introducing all the staff. And yes, on the website, we've got the professional pictures that everybody has taken when they come here. But on the meet the team, it's more about the personal side of it. Because again, the personal side of things tends to get much more interaction than the professional corporate side of it all.
And you need that balance. I speak a lot on this podcast about the balance between business and personal, because they both go hand in hand, don't they? You can't just always have photos of the kids and things, because then they're like, are they actually mortgage brokers? But then you can't always just post about business, because they'll think, well, I don't want to deal with a faceless brand. You want to have that mix, don't you? And it seems like you guys hit the nail on the head with it. Yeah,
it's absolutely. You've got to have the right mix and the right balance. And it as we were talking before we started, it all links in. So, we put stats on, which sort of shows the business levels and the growth and that kind of thing. But then we also put the personal stuff on there as well. And it's all about the bigger picture. It's all about growing the overall Mortgage First brand. Mm-hmm. And so I made an effort sort of 12 months or so ago to do more on LinkedIn, because it helps with growing your business. So when you are putting stuff on about the business growth and that kind of thing, it's getting the lenders involved. The lenders are then, sort of seeing that, and they're wanting to be aligned with you as a brand, and it helps grow the brand. When you're putting the stuff on about culture and that kind of thing, it all massively helps with recruitment as well. You asked about how you recruit people. Yes, you can use recruiters, you can do X, Y, Z, but actually a lot of what we get now is people approaching us, often through LinkedIn, about wanting to come on board. I think a couple of our top advisors that we've got in the business, in fact, our first and second advisor, in terms of our lead tables that we do internally, both just joined the business because they sent me a message on LinkedIn.
Wow.
And that's free recruitment, which comes about growing the brand, posting more, showing the culture of the business, because people will see that. And the more that you don't want to go too far, but the more that you post, the more people that interact with that kind of thing, the more people that are likely to then reach out to you when you do put a post on about recruitment. Because a lot of what we do is geared towards recruitment, but we might only post 1 in 30 posts actually saying we are recruiting. Mm-hmm. People, the other 29 posts is building the brand, is showing the culture, is getting people interested and aware of Mortgage First, so that when we do look to say, okay, we are recruiting, that's when you're going to get more engagement in it.
It's interesting you talk about the culture there, because the culture, you will show them the culture over 20 posts, won't you? This is like one of your meet the team posts as a photo of one of your staff, maybe with a pint sat at, I think it was football or rugby or something, and that's what she might do at the weekends. And then there's a meet the team post, and I saw a recent one where one of your staff members holding a fish. That's not the normal way that people do social with mortgage brokerages, and it stands out, which is awesome. It's great to talk about the company culture. The hard work is then done for you. When you put a recruitment post out there, you don't have to do much. And I think it's always good to recruit people that have contacted you through social, because they're big on social themselves, which means if they joined your company, they're much more likely to promote the business on social, and then it just keeps on rolling.
Well, they're like you say, they're going to promote themselves. They join you and they're big on socials. They're going to promote themselves on socials, but by default, they're promoting your business and growing your brand as well. And that's absolutely it. Industry, grey suits and stuff and all that kind of thing. It is definitely changing, but the culture, that we do, we've got a big plan for an event that we're going to have later on this summer, which is finalising the final details, but hopefully that should be amazing. We do stuff with the staff in terms of trying to do. We've just booked a adults only boozy mini golf for later on, which there's a DJ, you get drinks as you're going around playing mini golf and that kind of thing. So, you know, stuff like that is kind of growing the culture. And again, like you say, you put posts on about that. It's not your standard kind of mortgage industry stuff that people expect to see. And that is what gets engagement, grows the brand, which then makes people interested again. So that when you are looking to recruit, people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of Mortgage First. I might actually have a look at what that's about. And the whole thing that makes it's all intertwined, whether it's growing your brand, whether it's getting more introducers, getting more clients, recruitment, it's all interlinked. So when you post something about these are the stats for this month, it's not just showing off the stats that you've done. It's about growing your brand, and it's about trying to recruit more people, potentially attract other introducers and partners and that kind of thing.
I love what you've spoken about throughout that whole thing. There's not one post that's going to fix it. There's not one strategy that's going to. You need to be uploading consistently to deliver a message. You can't run a set of Facebook ads for £100 and expect you think you're going to get 3 inquiries. It's not like that. It's like you said, when you talked about LinkedIn, you've done that on your personal account. You've done it for the last 12 months and now you're starting to reap the rewards, aren't you? So it is a long game, isn't it? It's not a short-term one.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, one of the things we haven't even touched on is the way the business skyrocketed was through internet ads, was through pay-per-click and that kind of thing.
Was it?
And we've been doing that for 7-8 years now, and we're still doing it now. And we have lots of other lead sort of avenues as well. But again, people go on or buying leads from places. People say it doesn't work. It does work as long as you do it properly. And what you can't expect to do, exactly the same with pay-per-click, is say, I'm going to spend £200 this month, and then I don't get anything from it, so it doesn't work. It does work. We've been doing it 8 years. We've got to consistently be working at it and fine-tuning it. It's the same with social media as well. And none of these are quick fixes.
Yeah.
And even if you gave somebody £1,000 and bought some leads, you might actually say, oh, well, these leads are crap because I only wrote one mortgage off them. But then in 6 months' time, if you look back at those leads that you had, you might actually see that for that £1,000 spend, you wrote £8,000 off a business. But at that short little window you look at it over, it looks like it hasn't been successful. So you have to do things long-term to really get a true reflection of whether they work or not.
It's like everything, isn't it? If you invest the money over a 12-month period, then look back at what it's generated you. Do that instead of taking that snapshot of the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's
really interesting.
Things.
Right. So we're now going to get onto the strategies question of the podcast, which I love hearing the answers to. And I give everybody this question before the podcast starts so they can come up with a bit of ideas. You're not sat there going, I don't know what to do. So we're going to pretend that you've moved to the north of Scotland. You've got a laptop, a mobile phone, and an internet connection. What would you do to start generating mortgage business?
I mean, for me, that question is not really a hard one because I just do exactly what I've been doing for the last 7 or 8 years. To be fair.
Okay. So what are the steps that you've taken then?
So yeah, I mean, we like I say, we were quite early adopters of sort of pay-per-click and that kind of thing. And we're generating probably some days through all our different lead partners, we're generating 100 inquiries a day, something like that, through the various different lead platforms. So for me, being in the north of Scotland, as long as I've got an internet connection and that kind of thing, and a telephone to speak to people, lead generation is all our advisors are remotely based all over the country. They deal with clients remotely. They have done for the past 5 or 6 years, which is why COVID didn't have a massive impact on us, to be perfectly honest, because other than the obvious difficulties within the mortgage market, we were able to just kind of continue as normal in that sense because we were so used to working remotely. So, I mean, it doesn't really, if you had Scotland, Spain, wherever, as long as I've got an internet connection, we that's exactly how we work now. We work remotely, we generate inquiries online. The flip side of that is that also, I think some of the best inquiries and leads that you can get are just through generally speaking to people. And, I went up to meet Lee Flanagan from Bespoke.
Oh, yeah.
So Lee's a really, really good guy, and it's lucky enough to spend the day with Lee, and we were chatting about everything.
Great guy, yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's a really sound guy. And he's, he was saying he hates his advisors working from home. He'd rather they go off and work from a coffee shop or a gym or wherever, because the best way to meet new business is to be speaking to people, rather than being stuck, in your spare bedroom at home, is to be out there speaking to people. And there's a lot to be said for that as well, in terms of actually sort of speaking to people and you're telling enough people what you do. And as long as you can back it up with providing a quality service, you should be able to generate business that way as well. And a massive percentage of our business as a business now comes from referrals and comes from existing clients. And that shows that if you do a good job for people, they'll come back round.
So what you're saying is use that PPC to get those leads in to start with. You get a decent lead off that. They'll speak to 10 people. That's the online side of it worked out. And then it's the like of coffee shops, local, speaking to people, getting your face out there. That's what you'd recommend. That's
it. And you build your client bank through purchasing leads, or you can do a portion of your client bank through purchasing leads. But where you really start making money off those clients is the second time around, is when they actually come back round for renewal on their mortgage, and the cost of acquisition of that lead is zero. That's when you really start making money. And then likewise, if they refer you on to 10 of their friends, so it's all about speaking to people. It's about delivering a good service as well. Because ultimately, if you're buying leads in, but then not giving them a very good service, you might get a short-term win in terms of the initial deal, but you want to make sure that you're retaining that client as well when they come back around.
Love it. So this is the strategy you've done to generate 100 leads a day at the minute.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not every day. That's on a good day. We'll generate leads in large volumes through pay-per-click, through various other lead partners that we work with, through referrals, through existing client back coming back around, through introducers. You've got to have your eggs in a lot of baskets through social media, obviously, as well. You've got to have your eggs in a lot of baskets when it comes to lead generation, because Jesus, every mistake you can make in terms of lead generation, I've made it over the years, particularly all your eggs in one basket, and then overnight that lead source turns to crap, and then you sat there thinking, well, I haven't got any leads now. Even 6 months ago or something like that, the FCA changed something in terms of online lead generation, and Google Ads basically turned everybody off, and you had to then reapply and get reauthorized. That took a week or two to get signed off. And until you could do that, all of your pay-per-click ads were paused. Now, if that would have happened 6 years ago and our only lead gen was pay-per-click, trouble, because you'd had no leads for a couple of weeks. But because we had eggs in a number of baskets, yes, you feel it, but you don't notice it as much. So it is important to not just focus on one area of lead generation. You need the referrals, you need the word of mouth, you need the introducers, you need the paid leads, you need the social media leads. You need everything to make sure that you're getting the leads in from all different sources. Yeah,
don't rely just on one lead source, because as you said, if it's turned off overnight, you're not a goner, but it's going to seriously affect your business.
Yeah, and if you've brought advisors in based on the fact that you can feed them with leads, and then all of a sudden you can't, that's when you start getting people banging on your door asking what's happening.
Yeah. Mate, that's been awesome. Thank you so much. There's so much value in there for people to listen to. And
no problem.
I could have gone down loads of other different tangents there, but I know people are going to be listening to this for about half an hour, so it's given them so much value. As a thank you for coming on the podcast, I'd like to make a £10 donation to a charity of your choice, Jon.
Yeah, so Paul Lewis, who joined the business recently, as anybody who's been on LinkedIn will have seen, because he's been banging on about it for months and months and months. He has a charity mixed martial arts fight coming up in less than a month now, Friday the 13th. He's already raised, I think, over $4,500 for cancer research.
Phenomenal, isn't it?
If you could make a donation to that would be absolutely amazing.
Yes, definitely I will. And we made a donation he messaged me about putting the logo on his shorts. So
excellent.
You'll see Social for Brokers on his shorts when he's fighting. But
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much space left on there anymore. The amount of logos he's managed to get on there.
That's why he didn't wear Speedos. He wore shorts.
That'd have been a sight.
Jon, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I want to get you back on to really go into a bit like even more depth of how you use social and how you've grown the business even further. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next 12 months, mate.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for your time, mate.
Thanks, Jon. Cheers.
Thanks.